Now, there's a growing row between India and the United States following the arrest of one of India's diplomats in New York. Police in New Delhi removed the security barriers placed outside the U.S. Embassy, and senior Indian politicians have refused to meet a visiting U.S. delegation of congressmen. It's in protest against the arrest last week of the country's deputy consul general in New York, who was accused of paying her nanny less than the minimum wage. Devyani Khobragade was handcuffed and strip searched before being released on bail, treatment that India describes as barbaric.
We've expressed our deep distress and sense of disquiet that has been very, very strongly felt, and in words, strongest words possible. We feel both in terms of diplomatic responsibilities of relationships between countries that are friendly countries, but also we feel a very extreme level of distress.
Well, the U.S. State Department has defended the actions of U.S. Marshals.
The State Department's diplomatic security followed standard procedures during the arrest. After her arrest, she was passed on to the U.S. Marshals for intake and processing. So for any additional questions on her treatment, obviously this would be the U.S. Marshals and not us, I would refer you there.
Now, earlier I spoke to the lawyer of the Indian diplomat at the center of the controversy, and here's what he told us about her case.
The decision to charge her in the first place, we think, was a significant error in judgment. The facts and circumstances which allegedly supported that decision were not fully thought out, and we think that when a senior American diplomat sits with a senior Indian diplomat, the decision will be made that this was an ill-conceived notion from its inception, and this case should be abandoned.
But why do you say that this was a violation of her diplomatic immunity? Because the U.S. says that standard procedures were followed and that the diplomatic immunity that she's entitled to guarantees immunity only with respects to acts related to consular duties and not personal action, as is alleged in this case.
The facts and circumstances surrounding her being charged in this case will be the subject of further litigation. We will be providing legal briefs to the court which will establish that, in fact, she was entitled to complete immunity for the precise behaviors with which she's been charged in this case.
Why was she entitled to immunity? Do tell us why, because they're arguing the opposite.
I'm doubtful that either you nor your audience are interested in the arcane details.
No, we are interested, because if you recall, in the case of the former IMF chief, Dominique Strauss-Kahn, we heard outrage in France as well at the time when Dominique Strauss-Kahn was dragged out of a plane and handcuffed in New York on rape charges. So at that time, the issue of diplomatic immunity was also raised, and it turned out that he wasn't guaranteed diplomatic immunity in that case. So what we want to understand is, why would your client be entitled to diplomatic immunity in this instance?
Dr. Khobragade is a senior diplomatic official of the Indian mission here in New York, and as such, she's entitled to immunity. The decision as to whether or not to afford her that immunity will be made by a judge after the issues are fully briefed for the judge.
Okay.
We are confident that a judge ultimately will agree with our position, and we hope, however, that before we ever have to get to that point, that the diplomatic agents on behalf of the Indian government and the U.S. government understand that this was an ill-conceived prosecution and the case gets dismissed.
All right. Well, let's just take a closer look at what she is accused of. I mean, she's accused, if I understand correctly, and you can correct me on this if I'm wrong, of lying on the visa application for her Indian worker, and she's accused also of paying her less than the minimum wage. But you say, and I've read this, you say that she'll be fully vindicated even if she doesn't receive immunity in the end.
I do believe, and I'm certain that the facts will show, that the allegations against her are false, and she will be vindicated if we have to litigate this case.
So was she paying her employee fairly then, according to U.S. laws? Was she paying this employee the minimum wage?
She was paying her employee exactly what she should have been paying her.
Which is how much?
I'm not going to get into the details of the facts of the case with you at this time. This is an ongoing case, and we will litigate that in the appropriate forum.
Now, some in the Indian media have suggested, Mr. Arshack, that the Indian worker might be doing this to get asylum and get permanent residency in the U.S. What do you say to that?
I don't. I do understand that that is a conclusion that could be drawn from the facts, and I have no comment.
All right. Just one last question, if I may. Some in the Indian, as you know, India has taken retaliatory steps for the arrest of its consular official and how she was treated, including removing barricades outside the U.S. Embassy in New Delhi. Is this, in your opinion, an effective way of dealing with this case and addressing this issue?
I think it would have been foolish to believe that the behavior of the United States government against a high-ranking consular official would result in no response from the Indian government. Over the years, the United States and India have enjoyed a collegial relationship, and I expect that that will continue when and if the United States and India have an opportunity to sit down in a diplomatic session and resolve these issues.